Good evening. Welcome to Bellevue PTSA Council's 2021 Bellevue School Board Candidate Forum. We are excited you've joined us, whether you're joining us live or rewatching this session on another day. First and foremost, this is a forum intended to give our candidates a platform to inform you of their opinions, ideas, viewpoints, and goals for their potential term as your school board representative. So these candidates are specifically running for one position, for instance, number 3 or number 5, they're actually elected by the whole Bellevue district community. As a result, regardless of the position boundary in which you live, all candidate answers are relevant to all voters. As an example, if I were to live within the fictional position 9's boundaries, my ballot would still contain both position 3 and position 5's races. It's important to note that only the top 2 vote-getting candidates move forward to the general election in November. So your vote matters during this primary election in August. All candidates will be afforded the opportunity to answer all questions posed. Candidates have been encouraged to work to inform voters of their own stance on the given topic rather than debating another's viewpoint. Of course, a candidate might choose to address something they heard from another candidate. However, each candidate has a hard stop of 90 seconds to respond to each question. Unlike debates, there will be no separate or additional rebuttal time permitted at this time. Each candidate will begin with a 1-minute opening statement. Each candidate will also end with a 1-minute closing statement. Candidate opening, closing, and response order is random, generated through a random number generator, giving every candidate an opportunity to be first to answer as well as last. All questions have been community generated and no questions have been shared with our candidates. Questions were crafted so candidates can provide a broad range of information for voters. We could have filled an entire day with questions. So, I'd like to introduce Melissa Saunders, who's going to be our moderator for the day or evening. And she has the information on our opening order as well as our question order.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, candidates, for coming. Thank you, Jessica, for organizing this. So for the opening order, it will be Faye, Joyce, Greg, Leo, Jane, Carolyn, and Valerie. And I have to ask, is it Carolyn or Caroline?
It's Caroline.
Caroline, all right. Hopefully I'll remember that now. When your time is done, if you're still speaking, I will try to politely stop you, but I will stop you, and notify the next candidate that their time is starting. So we will begin with Faye. Faye, you're muted right now. So we're gonna unmute, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Faye Yan. I have 2 children in Bellevue School District. I'm also known as a school lunch mom by this community because I led a 2-year campaign to ensure that the basic nutrition needs are met in Bellevue School District. As 2 years of my work, Bellevue School District adopted a new lunch policy based on work, and later I worked with the state level and with more parents joining in the effort. The state legislature introduced a school lunch bill, HB 1272. And Bellevue School District closes the school during the pandemic. The prolonged school closure really have been very hard on the children, and they suffer from academic drop and social emotional trauma. And I'm a frontline healthcare professional, and I'm dedicated myself to use my knowledge and experience to bring the kids and students and the teachers back to school safely, also for their speedy recovery from their social emotional trauma.
Time is up, Faye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next is Joyce.
Hi, my name is Joyce Huey, and I'm running for position number 3. I did want to take a moment to recognize that a Bellevue School District student was killed in gun violence last week, and spend some of my 60 seconds to ask you to keep Daniel Tovar Moreno's family in your thoughts. I grew up in public schools in New Jersey, and I'm the mother of 4 kids. We've been at 5 different elementary schools in the Bellevue School District: Medina, Lake Hills, Anatai, Jingmei, and Puesta del Sol. I've been a single mom for a lot of the time raising kids, and I'm the mother of biracial, multicultural kids. I was in a very high conflict marriage and divorce, so I understand high conflict situations at a personal level too. Professionally, I earned my bachelor's degree from Harvard and my law degree from NYU. I am a lawyer who has worked on legislation as well as litigation cases, but primarily have been a technology software attorney for most of my career. I've got a passion for education. I taught ESL while at Harvard and founded a summer writing program that continues 30 plus years today.
Thank you, Joyce. Your time is up now. Those 60 seconds go really fast. All right, sorry about that. All right, Greg, you are up next.
Hi, my name is Greg Smith. First, a little bit about me. I'm running for position number 5 for the board. I'm a Seattle native. I went to public school over in West Seattle, graduated from Chief Sealth High School, then attended the University of Washington, where I received my business degree. After that, I worked for Anderson Consulting as a management consultant. And then in '92, I started with Microsoft, was part of the startup group for TechNet, was in that group until 1994, where I moved over to the OEM group and worked on the launch of Windows 95. I was a marketing manager at that time. After that, I worked in what was called the Network Solutions Group.
I'm in my PJs.
No one will know, Kai. They don't, because it looks, I'm in a meeting.
There's talking in the background. So I'm running for board because I think the school needs to be, the district needs to be revamped. Our kids need to be brought back into school full time. We need a plan for social emotional recovery and learning. And third objective is that we need to hire a world-class superintendent. And really, ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to heal relationships.
Sorry, Greg. I gave
PTA and the rest of the community.
Seconds extra because of the interruption. Leo, it is now your turn.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for your interest. This is such a contested school board election, but it means that we're all very much concerned. Now, I have a background in business, entrepreneurship. I've taught on the university level, and I'm a political refugee from the Soviet Union. I have 2 kids, special needs kids in the district. What I see here is an actual imbalance of power. The Bellevue Educational Association, the union, has taken the opportunity to actually divide and very much alienate our community. And I believe I'm running in order to, one, counteract that power grab that actually is very clear on their own website, as well as to bring some business acumen into this very disorganized, they're right, there's a very disorganized process. And so I want to ask good questions and I want to learn from all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leo. It is now Jane's turn. Jane, you're muted. So you're gonna need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Hi, first I wanted to say thank you to all our current school board members who have worked so hard through this pandemic year and a half. It's been a difficult year and I appreciate all the hard work that they've put in. My name is Jane Aris and I'm running for the Bellevue School Board. I live in Bellevue for the past 25 years with my husband and raised our 3 children here. Our youngest is currently at Sammamish High School. I have a unique background which provides the motivation for what I do. I was adopted from a Korean orphanage and came to the US at age 8. I didn't even know a word of English, but I had a wonderful 3rd grade teacher who showed me what good teachers can do. I became a special education teacher and taught our most vulnerable students. The pandemic exposed cracks in our school system that we must address. As a member of the school board, I will focus on reestablishing trust, addressing the social, emotional, and mental health of our students, and guaranteeing equitable access to high quality education. My background is proven track record of bridge building makes me the best candidate for this time.
Your time is up. Yes, thank you. Caroline, it is your turn now.
Good evening. I am Caroline Smith and I'm running for board position number 5. Let's face it, 2020 was a rough year for many students, educators, and parents. And instead of complaining, I chose to stand up and become part of the solution. In my day job, I'm a small business owner. I'm also a mother to 2 daughters. One will be a freshman at Newport and the other a 6th grader at Telecom. My goal in serving on the board is to engage families, students, educators, and the community, create an equitable and inclusive environment where all students can thrive. I believe the board should make decisions transparent to build trust, as well as take responsibility for the community's limited financial and environmental resources. As a community, we need to come together with clearly defined goals and expectations to create a better, more supportive learning environment for our district. I am Caroline Smith, and I'm running for board position number 5. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Valerie, it is your turn.
Yeah, my name is Valerie Maka. I'm running for BSD board position number 5. I'm a parent to a 3rd or rising 4th and rising 8th grader. My day job is in the corporate technology sector. I manage large partner contracts around supply chain and operations. I bring a strong data analysis skill set and problem solving mentality. From a school perspective, I've served on PTA boards. I've served on a math curriculum adoption committee, as well as an advanced learning task force around increasing diversity in some of our academic programs. My key components for being on the board will be to really help drive better communication and transparency. I think it's very well known that we saw a huge breakdown last year, and I want to be part of that solution to help us build trust back. I really believe in strong and intentional academic standards that will help inspire kids to reach their potential. And then lastly, I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit in social emotional health.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, we're going to begin with the question portion now, where your time will be a little bit more. You'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds now, so you'll have a little bit more time for your answers. Again, the order will be different each time. For this first question, the order will be Faye, Caroline, Leo, Greg, Joyce, Jane, and Valerie. The first question is, describe why you would be an asset to the school board. And again, we'll be beginning with Faye. You're muted, Faye.
I'm a healthcare professional, have been a frontline health worker since pandemic. I have the knowledge and experience to bring the students and the teachers safely back to school. Also, I have the leadership because I'm the director of a nutrition department in a healthcare facility. Also, I led a 2-year campaign to be successfully change the Bellevue School Lunch Program to benefit all the students here. So I have both the professional knowledge and the leadership to make a change for the Bellevue School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Caroline.
Hello. So one of the reasons I feel I would be an asset to the school board is, first of all, my business experience. As a business owner for 20 years and my business acumen, I will have the ability to kind of take a look at the numbers. Another part of the business side of it is data. I was a database programmer for many years. I rely on data to make business decisions on a day-to-day aspect of my job. Also, I'm a mother. I want to see Bellevue succeed. I want to see our children succeed. As a business owner, I'm hiring people that are coming out from the schools. And I want to have a great pool of candidates so that everyone can become employed and become the best person that they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Leo.
Thank you so much. I believe that I would be a good board member because I come, what I believe, into this position level-headed. No highfalutin words, no big ideas that are outside of the role of the board member. We have a very narrow role to play in the district. One of them is to choose the superintendent. Second is to support the administration in running of the school, not running the school, not setting up curriculum. None of that is our responsibility as the board. And I believe that there was truth to the fact that the board has overstepped its bounds during this really challenging times. But now coming back, we absolutely need to go back to what we were meant to do. And the second thing is we need to counteract the power grab of the Bellevue Educational Association. What they have done in the last 15 months has been absolutely atrocious and inexcusable behavior, especially by the president. And I will oppose it every single way because we need to support the staff and the administration and the students first and foremost. And it has not been done. And we have the lowest attendance of any school district in Washington state. And that is because of the highly divisive and abusive power. And I'm very upset that there are people here who are running for this board that are being supported by BEA, and they should not be chosen.
Time's up, Leo. Thank you. Next is Greg.
I think I would be an asset to the board because of my diverse background and experience. I talked a little bit already about my educational background and my work experience. Since having kids, I have a first grader going into second grade and a fourth grader going into fifth. They were enrolled at Jingmei, the Mandarin dual language school. We experienced really a catastrophic meltdown during the pandemic because my family is a non-native speaking family. We were unable to provide support for the family. And so it was super, super challenging. So one of the things that I want to do, and the reason I think I would be a big asset, is because I've got the experience both educationally and professionally. Since I left Microsoft in 2000, I started a wireless ISP business that I still currently own and operate. I've run it for about 20 years now. So I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a dad like Leo. We bring a different perspective. And I think we need a fresh perspective on the board. I'm known for thinking outside the box. With my business, I've had to go from cradle to grave in terms of figuring out solutions and how to work with customers and deal with budgeting. These are all things that are needed on the board. I also think I'm a pretty good interpersonal person. I work well with people on both sides of issues, and I believe that I'm very action oriented towards reaching and achieving goals.
Great, thank you, Greg. Next up is Joyce.
Hi, thank you. Excellence, equity, and empathy are the platform that I'm running on. And I'll start with empathy. I think it's important to know that we have a very divisive situation and that we need to speak charitably and empathetically and in a unifying way. My experience as an advocate, as a lawyer, and as a mediator between different parties, not always two sides, but multiple perspectives, will make me an excellent asset to the board because as Greg said, I am also somebody who listens to a lot of different perspectives and can collaborate well. I've done a lot of volunteer work with multiple nonprofits and sat on the boards of many of nonprofits as well as advised for-profit organizations. And of course, there's diverse perspectives. That is one of my assets, to be able to, with empathy, lead us to a solution where we have consensus and where we have unity. That is something that we've had in Bellevue for many, many years. This was a difficult year, and I think that emotions were high for good reason, and I will also be a voice of reason to tone down the inflammatory remarks and bring us back to excellence in all areas for all students. In my own family, I've got 4 kids who range from being in the gifted program to being on IEPs, and so I am well prepared to deal with a wide range of kids.
Joyce. Time is up for that question. Thank you. Next up is Jane.
Hi, I'm a parent of 3, ranging from general education, special education, and highly capable programs. My children also went through the Spanish immersion program here in Puerto del Sol, Tillicum, and Sammamish. Over the last 19 years, I have worked on several school and school district level advisory committees, and I understand what it takes to develop and implement policies. I'm a proud parent here, and I want to bring my passion of education and bring the focus back to each and every child by reestablishing trust, which I've been working hard through this entire campaign, talking and reaching out to all the different and broad members of our community, and addressing the social, emotional, mental health emergency regarding our students, which have been challenged before the pandemic, but re-emphasized and made more challenging during the pandemic. And again, focus on equitable education for each and every learner, every student in our school. I believe I have a deep understanding, both as a parent, as an advocate, and as a special educator, that could bring that. It's a unique perspective, and to make sure that we're really addressing all the nuances that needs to be addressed to make our policy holistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. All right, next is Valerie.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we have to roll up our sleeves. I also believe that every decision that we make as a community needs to go back to one outcome. What is the impact to our children? So however we have these discussions on policy decisions, curriculum choices, social emotional programs, who's our recipient? It's our children. And if we don't put that into our equation as our number one output, we will continue to fail as a district. And that's not okay with me. And so what I bring is, I think, just this balance between understanding that, we need to raise up the voices of our children, even our parents. It's been very fragmented for our parents to have this unified voice to talk about this. We are the parents of these children. We need to be able to be empowered to share this message internally into our leadership, into our teaching community, into all of the programs being offered. I also believe we can drive decisions in a much more systematic way. We not only look at the outcomes based on children impact, we set up programs that we're thinking about how are we going to measure that impact. It is possible to measure everything. I think there's a balance between getting quantitative and qualitative data. We need to do both. We need to continue to work to get holistic and comprehensive viewpoints, but we can do it.
Time is up. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to question 2 now. The order for this question will be Valerie first, and then Joyce, Faye, Leo, Greg, Caroline, and Jane. Question number 2 is, tell us about a recent advocacy experience related to our students, and also how have you been involved in the Bellevue School District in the last 2 to 5 years? So again, we'll be starting with Valerie. Oh, Valerie, you're muted.
During the pandemic, one of the things most noteworthy was the lack of social connection our children had. So I think I was cut off in my intro, but I am a founding board member of a wonderful nonprofit that does work in our community called Camp Kindness Counts. They run after school programs, kindness circles. And so one of the key things during the pandemic was just to say, this type of stuff is very important, right? That connection that needs to be continued for our students. So I really worked with our elementary school. My son was a 3rd grader at the time, to bring a learning pod, a kindness pod to Somerset. And then, we continue to expand some of the things that we saw to middle school. And there was a program called Kindness Ambassadors. We trained middle school and high school kids to teach these pods. And I think the beauty and the aha I had was, these are the connections we need to continue to create. We have so many resources in our community. They're in front of us. And it was very hard last year to be that parent to say, let's roll up our sleeves, let's be problem solving, and let's be solution oriented and figure it out. And this is what I want to do and advocate for. I believe we can solve our challenges. I really do believe that. We need to have faith in our children, our teachers, our board, and we need to come together to do this. So that's a key point that I advocated last year in my own community. I think, you know, looking back over the last 5 years,
Sorry, time is up. Thank you. All right, Joyce.
Hi, so advocacy and volunteerism. On advocacy, one of the things that I've done is, well, I said earlier, I worked on legislation, and one of the pieces of legislation I worked on was ensuring that the cultural heritage of children could be considered when families are going through dissolution. That was something that didn't exist before I worked on legislation and got that passed as an advocate. Also, with the last year and what's happened in our district, my advocacy has also taken the form of reaching out to others, posting, understanding, reading what other people perspectives are. And even as after I announced my run for this campaign, a lot of people have reached out to me, and I've really enjoyed hearing the different perspectives and being educated, and continue to want to hear from people. On volunteerism, that's something that I've done my entire life. I taught, as I said, ESL, English as a second language, in college for most of college, and I have been a volunteer in my children's classrooms teaching languages, including volunteering to help teach kids who are English learners, as well as teaching Spanish and Japanese in the classrooms. And so that's a brief synopsis of my advocacy and volunteerism. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Faye. Did we lose? I lost Faye's. Oh, it looks like we lost Faye for a moment. Okay, so maybe we'll be able to get her back and give her a chance to answer that question. But for now, we're going to go to Leo. Oh, okay. Do we want to try Faye again?
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, I lost I just got lost. I think I had bad connection here. I got a different connections. Can everybody help me now? Okay. Okay, I'll restart.
Yes.
The most recent one I was involved is I was part of the school essential group. During the pandemic, it has been very hard for the parents and for the families, for the students. I have 2 kids in the school district, and one with special need. And I have seen him suffered from academic drop and emotional trauma, behavior issue, from social isolation. And I feel how other parents feel. And at that time, I decided to switch him to private school. And also I have seen other kids who cannot switch to have other resource to compensate their loss. So at that time, I decided to push it through taking the kids back to school by looking at the data, looking at the science, not the emotions. So that's the most recent one I was involved. In 2018, I was part of the, I attended the equity talk in 2018. I attended those 5 serial meetings. I was listening to people from different perspectives. So I have deep understanding of how other people look into this topic for this school district. About 5 years ago, I mentioned it when during the self-introduction. I led a 2-year campaign to ensure the students' basic nutrition needs to be met. Okay.
Time is up. Thank you very much. All right, Leo, it is your turn now.
Yeah, so for the last 3 years, I have been executive director of a nonprofit that I started in Washington. Somebody mute me. For the last 3 years, I have been an executive director of a nonprofit that I started in Washington State, teaching entrepreneurship skills and employment skills inside Washington prisons. I have been involved in both prison reform and education reform for the last 11 years. I'm a communication coach as in my profession and serial entrepreneur. As far as the advocacy with the school district, both my kids are in the Bellevue School District Public School and remain so throughout the pandemic, as hard as it was. Before the pandemic, I constantly volunteered, regularly volunteered at their schools. So I understand the challenges that the teachers are going through. And I have the highest respect for the teachers because they're doing the hardest job. And to be put in the middle of this challenge, we did not do them any favors. But I am very much involved in my kids' life, the education inside the school for my kids. And I am very much committed to the programming and advocacy in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Greg.
So in terms of advocacy, I was hand-selected by the principal at my daughter's school, as well as the deputy superintendent, to sponsor and promote the bond that was passed back in 2020. It was the $675 million bond that was to rebuild Jingmei and many additions to many of the other schools. So I worked pretty hard with another parent at Jingmei to be an ambassador for that bond, and it passed. So it was time well spent. The money's going to go to a very, very good cause and very good use. In terms of volunteerism, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any of the candidates that have volunteered any more than I have. My kids are going into the 2nd and the 5th grade, like I said, so they haven't been in the district all that long, but I have been all in since day one. My wife and I were room parents from the first day of kindergarten for my oldest daughter. We were room parents for her all the way through till the pandemic. Same with my youngest, we're room parent. And then it just branched off from there. I was the director of after-school enrichment programs at Jingmei, brought up to 6 programs in, always sold out. These were school programs done on the short days. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. I brought a ski club to the school. And I noticed that kids were walking around in the playground by themselves. I wanted more inclusivity. So I partnered with YMCA to bring a play every day recess program to the school.
Thank you, Greg.
And there's more I want to talk about later.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is Caroline.
All right, so for the volunteer part of it, my daughters have been at Plaza del Sol. I've served as room parents for both of their classrooms all the way since my oldest was in kindergarten, and then also worked with my younger daughter's classroom as well. I had spent time volunteer reading and working with the students as well in the classroom. I've also taken a group of students with my passion and my love of technology, taking a group of the students that were girls and taking them through the robotics, a robotics club as well, and working with them and the Legos to build leadership skills, and also to really develop a love of STEM and technology. This is where the world is going, and this is where, taking a look at where jobs are at, where a lot of that focus is going. A lot of girls drop out of technology clubs during in 6th grade. So really working with my daughter and her friends and other girls to continue to develop that love of technology, to continue having the girls in the technology field as well. On the outside as well, again, very much on diversity and inclusion in the technology, and I serve on multiple ECs for that in the community as well.
All right, thank you. And next up is Jane.
So I know that this question is geared towards the last 2 to 5 years, but being a parent within the school district for the past 19 years, I actually have a very long history of being involved in being an advocate, being a parent, being part of the PTSA. I have done everything from being innovative to being inspirational to being supportive. I've been advocate for parents who have children with special needs, supporting them, giving them tools to how to navigate our school district, to supporting our students who are highly capable in needing that additional support and guidance as they're trying to stay engaged in learning. I've been that parent volunteering in the back room, taking groups of students, not just for my children's class teachers, but previous teachers and other teachers. I've also been the parent who brought the programming to our school district. Years ago, when our district, or I guess it's in general, education didn't believe kids could program, I challenged our district for 3 months, and they finally relented and let me pilot a program, bringing in volunteers and creating program for every grade level from 1st to 5th grade, and it was successful. I am that parent who has been pushing the limit and showing that kids are capable of beyond what they have been proven to be, believed to be. I believe I could bring all of that and more.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. All right, question number 3. The order for this question will be Greg, Valerie, Leo, Jane, Faye, Joyce, and Caroline. Question 3, describe the top 3 priorities you'd like to see fulfilled during your term. And we'll begin with Greg.
So number one, and this may be resolved by the time we're elected and in our positions, but the number one thing is I really want to, we need to get these kids back into school full time, with or without masks. I'm fine either way on that. We just need the in-person. The social isolation is just taking too much of a toll. You know, the suicide rates, depression, everything's off the charts. We got to get them back into school. The educational piece, I think we can make that up. I am concerned about it. I think there's been a lack of transparency. I don't think a lot of parents know out there that only about 60 to 70% of the curriculum's been taught. So when a kid comes home with an A, they think, wow, they haven't missed anything, when in fact they have. So we need more transparency. This is another key issue that I want to bring at all levels, with the board, with the union, with the superintendent, with the administration, everyone. But so the kids have been isolated. The educational deprivation's been horrible. We can make that up. The thing we can't make up is the social emotional part. There is a gap. There's a 1.5 year gap there that we're never going to get back. And I'm not sure how that's going to be resolved. We need to hire experts that are going to come in and take care of that. That's going to be really job number one, to do that. Secondly, we need to hire a world-class superintendent. We got to scorch the earth finding this person. And then secondly, or lastly, it's the transparency again. The community needs to know.
Thank you, Greg. Time's up. I was having trouble unmuting myself for some reason there. But thank you, time is up. Next is Valerie.
Yeah, so there's 3 main things that I've been talking about that I think have been some core areas of improvement. One is the communication, and I'm glad to see that the communication audit is now posted on our BSD website, and I've gone through it. They've elucidated some really good issues, so I feel hopeful that we will have better communications throughout our chain of stakeholders. But at the same time, I mean, I want to get to a place where all of our decision makers are really understanding each other's point of view, acknowledging it, and again, kid-centric outcome, aligning on decisions. So communications is key. Greg mentioned some of the learning loss, and I think we need to be intentional on the learning loss. I think there's, a well-known idea of deliberate practice. And I think we need to start looking at that. Deliberate practice, and I've seen it with my kids, comes to academic success. How do you understand where kids' gaps are? How do you get those immediate feedback loops to make a difference in learning outcomes? The data right now is very concerning on where our kids are, but we can fix it. We can make it up if we are intentional around academic excellence. Let's work with strengths-based. Let's work to reach every kid to their potential. Let's be intentional. Let's start communicating with our parents. What are the learning goals? Hey, your kid is missing tutorial. Do your parents know? So there's a lot of communication and work around, the learning loss and some of the support we need to do with curriculum. We have a new math curriculum coming in and we need to support it.
Thank you. Next up is Leo.
Yeah, I think that there is a huge opportunity here to take a system that has historically been very highly functioning, but has let a lot of lower income kids down, to actually look at these broken down systems, because the pandemic really exposed a lot of these inequities. And so to actually go into the school with trying to fix these inequities, to see where, now that we've been through the low tide, we know where the challenges are. And so we can actually direct money and effort into fixing that. And that means engaging with the professionals, but also communicating. I think one of the areas where I agree with BEA is that because of the challenges of the board faced, the communication wasn't the greatest, because we were all in incredible challenging situations as families and as a community. We need to switch that, build trust, and engage in our constituents, because parents have been floundering, and the current system, what we've done through this pandemic, has not helped me as a parent and many others as well. So I'm really hoping for communication and to really focus on the needs of those who most need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jane.
There it is. Sorry about that. Well, as I've been talking with our community on a regular basis here, this is what I've heard. This is what I'm hearing from our community that they would like from our school board. One is to reestablish trust. And I believe, as several of people have already spoke, we need to have better communication, better transparency. We need to hire a world-class superintendent that reflects our community values. Again, going back to our community and ask our community, what is that we want from our superintendent? And 3, really focus on our social, emotional, and mental health. There's no learning that's going to happen if we don't have a sense of balance. If we're too frazzled, we're too stressed, too high anxiety ridden because of the pandemic or anything else that we have created by accident, we need to make sure that we create that support system that will really address so they can function to their best ability, so we could really close that gap. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Joyce.
Thanks. Top 3 priorities for me would be 1, hiring an excellent superintendent. I think I have similar thoughts to a lot of the candidates here. And for me, that means someone that, as Jane said, this community can really get behind. And that means that it's somebody who we have participation from the community on and expressing their values and interests. And that's very typical. However that person is hired, it is the way that I've been through a lot of these processes, and the input of the community is important and will result in buy-in and an excellent superintendent. Second, the healing of the fractures, the very serious divisions from this last year, is a huge priority for me. And that's where, when I said earlier, empathy is so important to me, because people have very important and different perspectives. And if we listen to all of those with an open mind and an open heart, I do think that we can get to a better place. It is one of those things where people you can just ignore that it happened and try to jump back in, but it's better to talk about them and try to come to that better understanding. Otherwise, next time that there's a problem, then you're just going to go back into those old habits. And the third is increasing the sense of inclusion and belonging that everybody in the community has. That means the children and it means the families. Those are my top 3 priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Faye. You're still muted, Faye.
Right, so the top priority is to bring back the students. It includes two aspects. One is we bring back the students in-person learning full-time, make it available for the students who want to go to school full-time. Second one is we need to bring back the students who have left the school district. Some have lost it forever. We lost them forever because they moved to a different school district or different state or outside this country, but some of them are still out here, and we might be able to talk with them through communication and then bring them back to Bellevue School District. The reason some of them who left this school district because they lost their trust. We need to gain their trust, their parents' trust back by communication, transparency, and accountability. Also, we need to recover our students academically and emotionally. For the academic recovery, we'd better just start with the high school students because they're the ones who have more challenging curriculum. Also, for social emotional recovery, we might need hire more professionals. We need to allocate more resources for the students with special needs, for the poor, also for the students from poverty. They got hit more. The second priority is stabilize the budget. We lost about 1,500 students during the pandemic, which means we lost about $30 to $30 million on budget.
Time is up now. So thank you. And we will go now to Caroline.
Yes. So the first priority I would see is we need to get a superintendent hired. We need one that has very strong leadership skills. This is going to be a big task for this person to step into, and they need to have that proven leadership. They need to help bring the community back together as well. And while we're working on that piece of it as well, we really need to build bridges. There is a lot of animosity out there with talking to parents, talking to even students, and talking to the community. There's a lot of divisiveness. And I think working together on the goal of helping our children with social emotional concerns and education concerns, we can really start building those bridges and regaining that trust back between everyone in the system as well. And I know finally the third one for me is communication. As someone that's been in the district for as long as I have, the communication is everywhere. It's email, it's website, and it doesn't always all match up. And we need to really take the communication audit and really implement that so that everyone can get communication, everyone can get consistent communication, and it can be for all forms, all languages, so that everyone, every parent, every child, everyone in the district is informed.
Thank you. Did I unmute? Okay. Thank you, Caroline. All right, we are going to go to the next question. The order for answering this next question is going to be Leo, Caroline, Greg, Jane, Joyce, Valerie, and Faye. Okay. The next question. How can a board know if its goals are being accomplished and its policies carried out? What strategies would you use if you feel your requests to the school district are being misinterpreted or ignored? And again, we will be starting with Leo.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Was that Leo that asked for the question to be repeated?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. How can a board know if its goals are being accomplished and its policies carried out? What strategies would you use if you feel your requests to the school district are being misinterpreted or ignored?
So one of the good things about the way our board has been structured is that one is that there's a law, right? We have by law, we have certain responsibilities that we are to fulfill, including choosing a superintendent, as well as many others. So the idea is to follow the law and to follow our responsibilities to the letter, the budget, the superintendent, and really supporting the administration in running the schools. I think that if I had a disagreement, one of the major things that I would do is to look through and find the right appropriate way to file it, and to actually start having conversations with individuals in order to figure out what is the best resolution. The other piece that I think is really critical is to avoid divisive language in communication, and to really continue to be professional. I think that's one of the things that, in my experience, have broken down during this pandemic, coming out, including the board as well, but a lot of it coming out from other areas and other people, leaving the kids behind and their interests behind. So the idea here is to really follow the law and not create some other unique process. And it's also not to overstate our own bounds. We need to stay within our lane and do our job well as volunteers, but as elected officials.
Thank you, Leo. Next is going to be Caroline.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost is communication. And communication is not just one person telling someone something else. It's bi-directional, right? So it's making sure that what's being said and what's being heard is together. I think that can be done with making sure that we have set expectations. Everyone is also aware of those expectations. And it may take multiple forms, but the first and foremost is also, once those expectations are set, that it is put into writing so that everyone has something to refer back to. So it can kind of give the roadmap. And again, a lot of these are already policies and procedures that are in place, but I think making sure and taking the time up front to make sure that everyone's on the same page of what we're trying to accomplish is key as well. I think strategies to that requests, I think first, again, it comes back to communication. What are we trying to do? How are we going to measure it? And then also check-ins to make sure that, what we're expecting is happening. So again, I think where we saw a lot of breakdown last year was communication to the parents, communication to the board, and really everyone trying to keep a level head and remembering the first and foremost why we're here is for the kids and their education.
Thank you. Next up is Greg.
So there are laws, as Leo said, that govern roles and responsibilities. Those need to be absolutely adhered to. They're published. The school board members have access to that, and the teachers union also has access to the rules that govern them as well. And so there are roles and responsibilities, and each group needs to adhere to what their roles and responsibilities are and not to overstep their boundaries. I think that's been a big part of the problem that we've experienced this last year between the board, the superintendent, and the teachers union. So that needs to be addressed. And I think people just there needs to be a clear delineation on people's roles and responsibilities, and they need to adhere to that. It's super important. So communication and transparency are the two most important things there. For the board, in setting policies and knowing if they've been accomplished and if the policies are being carried out, anecdotal evidence is not going to cut it. So when I worked at Microsoft, it was very important. We had GOKRs where we had key objectives and key performance results. So there needs to be metrics on this. There needs to be data that backs up the policies and the programs that have been defined and that are being implemented. And those need to be checked on a regular basis, be it monthly, quarterly, or annually. But the only true way to really understand this is going to be through surveys and data and collecting information on this.
Thank you, Greg. Time is up for that. Next up is Jane.
Let's see. Well, we have a fantastic mission and vision statement that our school board has created. And it really addresses about the point of making sure that we're supporting the whole child. I think that is a good place to start, making sure that we address every element of our mission vision statement. And to do that, we need to utilize the policies that we put forth. One of them is the equity policy, which is a great lens to make sure, are we supporting each and every child in our school district, no matter what their ability or disability or strengths or weaknesses are. And to do that, we need to use tools of, as Greg has said, we need to use our, metrics. We have to use our data. We have to look at all the resources that we have. And we need to survey our community regularly. We need to talk to all of our broad and diverse community, making sure that we are addressing the needs of each and every student. Because at the end of the day, it's about the success of our student. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Joyce.
Hi, so how can the board know that its goals are being accomplished and the policies are being carried out? Feedback, feedback, feedback. One of the things that I did before I decided to run for the board was try to get a better understanding of where the community was. And so the community means, it means the teachers, it means the students, it means the families, it means the administrators in the school district. So even before I decided to run, I was meeting with people to try to understand where all the division was coming from. I work full time, I've got 4 kids, and it was sort of shocking to me to see some of the inflammatory rhetoric. And what I found as I got into it is that I didn't even know where all the feedback was. Like, we heard anecdotal stories, but not a lot of data. We've heard tonight from a lot of people, and I agree that we need more data. And so one of the recommendations that I made to the district a few months ago and to the school board was to even publish the many, important perspectives that are being shared with the board, rather than just reading 7 of them or however many of them at the board, and do some analytics on that. As far as the strategies that I would employ to make sure that the requests to the school district are not being misinterpreted or ignored, I guess here, I think that the board of 5 people, it's important that we have 5 people and we have different views. And so having a unified stance, even if I'm in the minority, if the consensus is to have one approach, we adopt that approach so that superintendent is clear with their direction.
Thank you, Joyce. Time is up. And next is Valerie.
Yeah, so I mean, I believe that, we don't set up goals that we can't measure. So if we go in with that mindset, we are going to attempt to get baseline data, both quantitative, qualitative. We're going to take that time to measure, and then we're going to talk about results. I think some of the challenges are to get that holistic viewpoint, right? Loud voices are easily heard. Quiet voices are not. So one of the things that I've been thinking about is, how do you capture those quiet voices to make sure that we are getting to the best result? So not easy. However, there needs to be a process to capture those voices. They need to be documented and communicated. And so I think a really big important piece of this is this post-program communication and impact analysis. There have been changes that happened last year. There are changes that will happen next year. Are our parents and communities understanding the problem statement that drove to decision? What are the outcomes? Is it transparent and visible? And let's talk about it. And it is a community way to look at how the impact is. And that's one way to get decisions, right? In the communication audit, people felt decisions were made already. And so why do you ask for my opinion? So let's get people involved, but let's communicate that. In terms of what happens if I feel I'm being ignored, hey, it's humility. If I'm being ignored, I should understand why. I should actually go back and get more data and say, hey, this is my issue. This is, or not my issue, but this is an issue I'm seeing. Where am I going wrong? What other data have I not seen? Because that's why I'm getting ignored. And that's my sense on it.
Thank you. All right, next up is Faith. Faye, you're muted still.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
All right. Okay, so when there is a miscommunication. First thing is all the parties stay within their boundaries. Also, we need to set up a clear goal for everybody to understand where the disparities are. We need also, as a community, as a school district, we need parents' involvement. We need to set up a clear language for communication so every party knows where the disparity comes from. Also, when there's a disagreement, we understand that we need compromise, but not at the price of the students. As adults, as caregivers, we need compromise with each other's decisions, but has to follow the law, has to be within boundaries. In the end, we need to work as a group, united together, not divided. Otherwise, we won't be able to achieve anything, just like what happened last year. It's a traumatic experience for the school district and for the students and for the families. Moving forward, we'll have to improve our communication. We'll have parents' involvement, and we will with transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question, the order is going to be Joyce first, and then Jane, Faye, Leo, Greg, Caroline, and Valerie. The next question is, what is the fundamental job of the school board in our superintendent search? And what strengths are you looking for in the new superintendent? And what weaknesses do you think our district can withstand?
Would you mind putting the question in the chat? Oh, thank you. Thanks. So my thought about the fundamental job of the school board is to make sure that the process is transparent and fair. I, as everybody has seen, who has been following, has seen the letter from the coalition that represents several hundred, if not thousands of people and their concerns. What I read in that letter, and I will go there because I saw that it's a very volatile and potentially divisive kind of situation that's come about. But what I read in that letter is a deep concern that we have enough community involvement. Whatever the prescriptive answer is, and setting that aside, because there are a lot of different ways to accomplish community involvement, I think that everybody probably agrees that community involvement is important. So the job of the board will be to create a process that it is the board's job, and it is under law the board's job to hire the superintendent. Our role will be to make sure that that process, that everybody buys into it. If that means hiring an expert, when it often does, that takes that into account, then that is one of the ways to do that. And then as far as strengths I'm looking for, someone said it earlier, leadership, somebody who can talk in empathetic tones and still have a firm stand so that people respect and believe in that person and get behind them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jane.
Sorry, for whatever reason, my video keeps on cutting out. Let me look at here. What is the fundamental job of the school board, of the superintendent? Well, obviously it is to follow the law that is put forth for the school board to address. And with that, we need to make sure that we are representing the larger community. We need to be the voice, the conduit of the voices of our community. And in order to do that, we need to look at what are all the different processes we've done in the past that has been successful, creating committees, that as well as really surveying our community as to see what is our value, what do we want as in our leader. Obviously, I think this past year, everyone's in consensus that we need good transparency, someone who knows how to communicate well in a positive way, and as well as know how to strike a really good balance and know how to communicate with the school board and as well as teachers and all other staff members, and really give respect all across. What weakness? I haven't figured that one out yet. I'm looking for the positives. I'm looking for how we could really utilize our superintendent in the best way. I'm listening to our.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up is Faye. Nope, you're still muted. There you go.
The school board members are elected by the taxpayers and the community members, as we all know, and they made policies and rules for this school district. They represent the taxpayers and parents' interests and values. They have the sole power to select the superintendent. The superintendent is to implement the rules and policies made by the school board. And we, as a community, the school board, superintendent, and any other parties should work together and reflect the taxpayers' values, involvement, and interest with accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Leo.
Thank you. I believe as mentioned previously, the role of the board is to select a superintendent. It is written into our law. It is not a semantic, as Joyce has said in the letter from BEA, for those of you who have not read it. It's not just from BEA, but it was written by the coalition. In the letter, I fully support increased engagement. Absolutely, increased engagement, increased transparency. And I am here 100% to support our amazing teachers and to do it for the benefit of our students. But when the letter says, for all those reasons and in good faith, we demand that BSD School District defers its authority to choose permanent superintendent, as stated in the law, to a committee of district leaders, education staff, students, that is illegal. And that is what I'm here to highlight, not because to be divisive, but to show that the BEA has been divisive, and many of their efforts have actually hurt our students, our parents, and our children, and it is inexcusable. And right now there is a power play to literally hijack the process and make it so that the BEA or particular parts of BEA, it's not even the whole group, it's the president in particular, gets to have her politicized way, and it is not acceptable, absolutely not. And I want to make sure that we stand together as a board to do that, including building a coalition to help choose the right superintendent.
Thank you, Leo. Time is up, and thank you. It is now time for Greg to answer.
So I'm all about solutions. We need to figure out how to make all of these things work, to work with the union, to work with the district itself. It's critical that we do that. I read the letter from BEA, and Leo's correct. They're suggesting that they should be able to usurp the ability and the power from the board to be able to select the next superintendent. And just frankly, that just makes no sense. There's no legal basis whatsoever for that. Now, first of all, everyone needs to know that a little over 60% of your property tax dollars goes towards schools. About 30% goes to a general fund, and about 30% goes to the Bellevue School District. The general fund, a good portion of that trickles back to the school. So that money that we're paying in our property taxes is going towards the schools. Then we are electing the board members to represent us as a community. So to me, it makes a lot of sense for the board members to be selecting. Now, when the board is selecting a pool of candidates from which to choose from, and then ultimately selects the one that's going to be the next superintendent, the community should be involved. All constituencies should be involved in that process. But that duty lies with the board and is super important. So we need a superintendent that's going to be a thought leader, that's going to be above and beyond everything else, and someone that has experience and someone that's a good negotiator. Very, very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Time is up, and now it is time for Caroline to answer.
The fundamental job of the board is to choose the leader. And again, like others have saying, this can't be done blindly. It's not 5 of us sitting in a room drawing straws or whatever it is. We've got to be transparent on this. We need to talk to the community. We need to talk to the students. We need to talk to the teachers. We need to find that superhero that is out there that can come and give us the leadership that this district is so desiring and needs right now. I think the superintendent, first and foremost, needs to believe and live every day the mission of our school. Their core values have got to be in line with our district. These have been set. This is what we're saying, that as a district, what we believe. And I think that has to be the guiding light that the community uses to find this next school board superintendent. The school board attendant is also going to need to be someone that can bring some positive culture to this organization, to the district. Someone that is respected by the teachers, respected by the union, respected by the students, so that they can be that leader of the school and the leader of the district. And they've got to be there ready to listen to everyone and to hear the voices. So again, I think it's going to be a tall job to find that superhero our district needs.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Next up is Valerie.
Yeah, so, just to touch on board selection, the board is here to serve our community. It is not our job to pick the superintendent in the most literal sense. It is our job to represent the views of what our community wants in our superintendent. So if we take that lens, we ensure that our community can be involved in the qualities they want. We communicate how we do that. We can build some trust to actually get to a process that could be jointly celebrated. And that is what we need to do. However, the board is this unbiased party, and not to put in a corporate Amazonian term, but it's a bar raiser, right? This objective party to try to balance the noise. And I do believe in that, but I do believe that is jointly with all of our stakeholders here in this. So we need a leader who is going to be results oriented, will possess strong leadership skills, and is going to be able to not be scared to make change and swift actions. I mean, we waited a long time for decisions to get done. So we need a bold leader who can, understand how to move things forward swiftly. We are a large district, but there are larger districts that surprisingly were able to move swifter for us. And what weakness can we withstand with a superintendent? Well, the weakness we cannot withstand is when our children are going to be compromised. And that is the one thing I will say. I mean, I think, if our superintendent knows that he may not be perfect, he or she may not be perfect, and that's okay. But I think the one thing that we need to all realize with our superintendent is that job one is our children.
Thank you. Time is up. Thank you. All right. The next question. The order is going to be Valerie first, then Leo, then Greg, then Caroline, then Jane, then Faye, and then Joyce. The next question is, operational curriculum decisions are not made by the school board. What do you see the school board's role in addressing the impact of COVID-19 on student learning?
Just the last part again, can you say that?
Yeah. What do you see is the school board's role in addressing the impact of COVID-19 on student learning?
Yeah, no, I think, and this is an area that I've been deeply passionate about. I've met with our math curriculum director just because I have some background in that area. Curriculum has been set or selected, illustrative math. I think our leadership there is very excited. The board's role of impacting COVID-19. I mean, we had a tough year with remote learning. Some kids succeeded, some kids didn't. Let's understand that. And, one of the things that I learned as, post new math curriculum is that, we have a $2 million RFP for tutors for math, since, I'll use math as an example, but they're for virtual tutors. Now, while I will not say, that's a horrible decision, But the math curriculum director said, you know, in this time of so much virtual learning, how do you get the most enhanced learning, that tight feedback loop I talked about? And maybe we need to employ more face-to-face learning, and we need to be open to it. So that was sort of my first question. The second thing I learned was that professional development is not required. And while I think it's wonderful to have flexibility for PD, I also want to make sure, how do we set ourselves up for success? We have a very big change coming with math in K-7, and I want to be really, really successful on all fronts. So as a potential board member, I would ask those questions to make sure that we are being very cognizant and eyes wide open on, hey, you know, an RFP for virtual tutors only, PD not being, required.
Thank you. All right, next up is Leo.
Yeah, I think the two major priorities. Number one, support the experts. We have one of the best school districts in the country. We have the experts to do the job right. We don't need to second guess them. And I think that was one of the mistakes that have happened with the board during the previous year. We can do better. And number two is communicate, communicate, communicate. Our job is to communicate the decisions that are being made to the, and we are living this age where we can do that, to communicate it effectively and clearly to the community of parents, of students, and of teachers, and of administrators and general population, to know where their money is going, why we're doing what we're doing, and ultimately grow that trust. But trust doesn't happen because we talk about it. It's not a political issue. It is about transparency, as Greg said. It is about metrics. It is about doing our job and letting other people do theirs. When people overstep bounds, that's where you have the divisions. And the one thing that I don't believe our role is to politicize education. You know, what we are taught is not our role, whether I agree with it or not. But what is important is that what we taught gets taught equitably to every single student, especially those who are disadvantaged. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Greg.
So the board is elected by the community. And so we represent the community, and it's important for us to know what the community wants. We need to be in touch. I don't know that that's been done very well this last year, the last couple of years, or even pre-pandemic. I don't know that people paid a lot of attention to it pre-pandemic. I think there needs to be a better process in place for capturing what parents and the community really wants in terms of curriculum and in terms of social emotional learning. I come back to this. The gap that we have in SEL is something that we may not be able to make that up. I mean, we're talking about brain development. And so we missed a year and a half. So I don't know that we can, go back and recoup that. We've got to figure that out in some way, shape, or form. So once we really know where we need to take the curriculum and SEL from the community, and this is through open communication and transparency, I think at that point we need to establish the high-level policies and that really very, very well define what we're trying to accomplish, what the educational objectives are, the metrics, et cetera. And that's really the role of the board, is to do that, to not get into the detail. That's the district's job to figure out what the actual curriculum is going to be. And so that's important in terms of COVID-19, even more so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Next up is Caroline.
I think first and foremost is that we are elected by the community. So I think taking a look at what the community wants and what the community needs, and then communicating that to the school district. And then with taking a look at the curriculums, I don't know much about different types of curriculums, but I do know that, we can take a look at seeing and asking the questions. Did this curriculum work? Is it working? Do we need to shift something on this? So I think that's the question of the board, not to get into nitty-gritty details about how, algebra is taught, but that the kids are learning and that all kids are learning. We have to be able to take a look at the whole the whole perspective or the range of the students that we have here in the community, because we can't let one section or one of them fall behind. We've got to make sure that all the kids are getting the education that as by law we're required to deliver to them. So I think that's the main pieces of that, is talking to the school district, talking to the parents, and making sure that, you know, what the school district is saying is happening, and that they are doing it in an equitable and economical way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jane.
As I have mentioned before, I'm a former special education teacher, and I've worked with the most diverse learning abilities. And I'm very successful in that job. I know how to close the gap of 2 to 3+ years of learning. And I know what kind of questions to ask. I am good at asking difficult questions, the challenging questions, the questions that often gets missed. And I also know how to work economically and think outside the box. Those are some of the skills I'll be able to bring. And as a school board member, to know and how, and to work together collaboratively with our stakeholders, make sure that I'm representing our parents, because that's my first priority, parents and students at the top, and making sure that we give our experts, our teachers, the ones we work really hard to hire, and give them that trust, and making sure that we are addressing that without overstepping. I know that I can do that job as a school board because I can do it without hurting people's feelings, because that's how I close the gap for our students with who have more challenges.
Great, thank you. And next is going to be Faye. Still muted.
The school board will provide directions how we're going to fix the COVID negative impact on our students academically. The school board will not do any micromanagement. It's a superintendent's role to implement those directions, rules, or policies. First and most important of all, we need to assess how far behind our students are objectively. We have to face a reality that the curriculums were taught during online learning was only 60% compared to before, during the regular school years. We need to understand how far our students are, how far behind our students are, because our students are competing with other school districts. Also, because we believe that the COVID impact all the students. However, we need to prioritize several groups. First one, we need to prioritize high school students for their college readiness. Also, we need to prioritize the students with special needs and the students from poverty families, because they got hit the most. We need parents' involvement to fix this problem. We need to communicate with the parents what programs out there to help them. We need the parents help the students. We need to fix their social emotional loss.
Thank you. Time is up. Next is going to be Joyce.
Hi, I agree with Jane, with Leo, who said that we need to support the experts. As school board members, we may dabble in, Jane actually has a background in education, but for the rest of us, we have some principles that we know about, but the educators are the ones who are the experts. And so it's important when we ask what is the school board's role in addressing the impact of COVID-19 or anything else on student learning, it's that we need to listen to the experts. And that's where we need to start from that base. And then our role is to listen, and then to distill what the principles and themes of what we're hearing are, and to deliver that to the superintendent and the superintendent staff. And I'll give you an example at my job of 100,000 employees. When COVID was hitting in March in 2020, it was right after Ahmaud Arbery had been murdered in his neighborhood. So we had lots of people very understandably upset and scared of COVID-19, and concerned about the impact on employees of that. But meanwhile, we had our Black, Indigenous, and other people of color employees really concerned about what was happening. So the board's role is to listen to what's not heard. Someone said earlier about listening to those, I think it might have been Valerie, listening to those small voices. And that's what I think that the board needs to do, is to listen to all voices, especially the small voices. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, for our next question, the order is going to be Jane first, and then Faye, and then Greg, Caroline, Valerie, Leo, and Joyce. And while we did not give candidates questions in advance, we did tell them that they might want to review policy 0130, as there might be a question about that. So that is this question. Describe your understanding of the school board's critical criteria set forth in policy 0130. How does using the current critical criteria policy meet the needs of the students? Do you have any suggestions for changes or improvements to the criteria? And that question will be added to the chat, and we'll be beginning with Jane.
You know, years ago, I started, I was part of the Parent Advisory Committee, which was started by Dr. Riley. And the point of that committee was to figure out, how do we support the students that's not falling behind? How do we make sure that we lift all students, top, bottom, middle, all of them? And through that came out was that how we need to make our education more equitable, which is the end result is this policy. I was super excited when we were able to come together and come up with a policy to make sure that we're looking at every element of our education system to make sure that we are being not just fair, but making sure that we are making sure every student is successful. The policy is really a lens. It's a lens to analyze and making sure that all of the different components of our school district is not just fair, but equitable, and making sure that we are meeting the needs, whether it is the curriculum is addressing the different learners, making sure that it has the differentiation components. We are making sure the teachers are also understanding the different learners in the classrooms, and making sure that, you know, and it's not just the teachers, it's the administrators. It is every member of our learning community, that making sure that we are all aligned to make sure that it is really the best it can be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is up. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Next is Faye.
This policy provides guideline for all the staff members in the school district to help all the students that need to be helped. Also make sure all the students can excel at their own level. This policy has been implemented in Bellevue School District for a few years. We need to look at the data, look at the successful result, and if any adjustment needed, we will make adjustment to this policy. And there's no division, and we want every student successful in our school district, and allocate the resource, including funds, human resource, staff, to help them, to outreach them. And we need to listen to the parents' voice And we need to provide different intervention strategies for different groups. When we moved here 6 years ago, we attended Stevenson Elementary School. That's a very different population from later on where we live in Somerset. And we need to provide different strategy for parents' involvement, target those populations, make those students successful. So we need to come up with different strategies for different groups to make them all successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Next up is Greg.
So it's an amazing document. You read through the 7-page document. It's extremely well written. It's very articulate, and so it's clearly been thought through in a lot of detail. I think it's wonderful. It looks to include all students, including the marginalized students, people that are struggling. It covers pretty much all the bases. I really applaud the document. The one thing that I think might be lacking are some of the goals. So for example, one key goal I think we should strive for, we currently have, the Bellevue School District has a 94% graduation rate. That sounds good, but if you're in that 6th percentile that doesn't graduate, that's not so good. So I think, and if you look who's in that 6%, even more issues, because it tends to be the people that this document's addressing. I think what we need to do is strive for 100%. And I think we need an outreach program to find actively find these people these children that aren't succeeding and excelling. We need to strive for a 100% graduation rate. And then once we've secured that, we need to look at elevating each and every student to reach their maximum potential. And that doesn't mean they're going to achieve 1,600 on the SAT. It's not everybody's cup of tea. We need to figure out what their personal best and what their affinities are for the things that they want to do.
Thank you. Next up, Caroline.
I think first and foremost, this document is, first of all, kind of a guideline, of course, of how that the district should act with the diversity we have here. And the sentence that really struck me the most in this, and this has always struck me, is that diversity is a core strength of our district and requires that we work systematically to eliminate racial inequities and inequities for all marginalized students. And I think those are the guidelines that this document is preparing the school and preparing us to look at those systems as a board and as part of this community, that this has got to be first and foremost in our thoughts on this when we talk about decisions, when we start implementing programs. Do these programs work for all the students? And if not, what can we do to make that happen? And again, I think this is one of probably the most important governances that we have as a board to make sure that our decisions follow. I think we also need to have some checks into place, is that, when we're doing this, is there feedback and is there data behind it, so that we know that we are meeting the needs of all the students in the district. We can't be guessing at this. This isn't, let's hope and pray that, we are getting it, but we need to have that feedback and we need to find out those answers.
Thank you. And next is Valerie.
Yeah, I think in terms of what do we do from here, right? So we have a policy. It is quite comprehensive. We've defined metrics. We defined, how do we recognize implicit bias as we frame questions? How do we solicit this data? So we've done a lot of the hard work. What have we done with the results is my question. And I think, I do, having attended board meetings, we talk about this stuff. So with that, is that information, going back to this closed loop of information dissemination, going to everyone? And if it's not going to the people who attend board meetings and maybe ask the questions, how do we get it to everyone? So if our data says, feelings of inclusion, let's say through panoramic, that's a panoramic survey we do everywhere, or SIP reports are going up. Does that data make sense with anecdotal feedback with our population? And are we capturing all voices to validate the data that is being asked to be captured in this policy, 130. So that would be the place that I would start on how to change it, is to make sure that we are actually doing now the service to understand if we're moving the needle here. So one of the things I think, policy is easier to write on paper, but harder to follow through and understand. And so, as board members, I think that's the place where we really got to focus in on. It's not about putting pen to paper. It's about putting things into action and seeing output that is actually meaningful.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. Next up is Leo.
So I think that what we measure matters, and we want to make sure that we measure the right things, and then we actually stand by with what matters. So, for example, I've been working for the last 7 years volunteering in prisons, and last 3 years running a program. And I will tell you once that if we measure the wrong things like recidivism, then we will never get in front of a problem. We'll always deal with the tail end of it. So we need to really start working with students and parents and families and figuring out, because when you have discipline issues, when you have other academic issues in the most vulnerable groups, that is not because the educational system is failing per se, it's because the whole system is failing. Our community is failing to support the parents, and the parents are failing perhaps doing their job as well. So they need the support. Very often it doesn't have to do with discipline. So it's very important that we actually look at it holistically and not just piecemeal. The document is powerful, the document is good, but as Greg said and Valerie said, it is not about the pretty words, it's really about the data. And it's not about pleasing everybody. It's about really building a communication system that communicates the valid points effectively. And that is not being done so far. And that is what needs to be done to support our children and our teachers to do their job best.
All right, thank you, Leo. And next up is Joyce.
This policy represents and mirrors my platform exactly. So I think it's brilliant. I do think that what it raises in my mind is a lot like prosecutorial discretion. You've got something that's very comprehensive. You got a set of statutes, of city ordinances and state statutes, federal statutes. But when it comes down to actual implementation and with a prosecutor deciding where to focus his or her, or the department's energies, it's similar. So we've got a very comprehensive document here that does reflect, it sounds like, the position of everybody who's on this call. And we all agree that it's a very important document that we can stand behind. Then where do we go and where do we focus? And I think that that's where we got to make sure we focus on it. This is one of many policies and procedures. And for me, this is a central and very important one. It is one of the primary reasons that I'm running. So this is one that I will focus on. And then within the policy, it's really important to achieve equitable results for everybody. And that means children with different learning needs. It means people with different physical abilities. It means gender inequalities and inequities, and it means racial inequalities and inequities. And when you look at the school to prison pipeline, when you look at the graduation rates, it's important to focus on racial equity. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, our next question, the answer order is going to be Greg first, and then Leo, Caroline, Joyce, Valerie, Jane, and Faye. BSD's mission is to meet the needs of each and every student. Keeping that in mind, where do you see growth and barriers to success for students in the following categories? Students with disabilities, English language learners, students experiencing homelessness or poverty, and other minority groups within our district. Starting with Greg.
Okay. I'm just reading it here. So as I mentioned earlier, I really think what the district needs to do is create a true outreach program to actively reach out and identify who these people are in these different groups, all of these groups that you just mentioned. And the programs need to be, we need to do a ground up approach to reevaluate it. And for each of the groups that we've identified, we need to know, what their special needs are in terms of academics, but also social and emotional learning. We also need to focus on what the key objective of the district is. It's to graduate these kids, right? It's to get them educated and graduated. And that's certainly the bulk of it. The other piece is we don't just want these kids to be graduated, but we want them to become good, responsible citizens in the community as well. And ultimately, you can be as smart as can be and be a contributing citizen, but if you're not living a fulfilling, happy life, it ends up being meaningless. So a holistic approach is really the key to this. And so I think what we need to do is just take a step back and evaluate the programs that we have and make sure that we put into place programs that are going to actively reach these various groups so that we can deliver the best possible programs.
Thank you. Next up, Leo.
So I came to this country in 1989 as a political refugee from the Soviet Union, and I didn't speak any English like many students. So I came in 7th grade into a public school in Chicago, and I remember the difference it made to have programs that supported me. And that is the kind of support that's needed in our communities, in our schools. And as Greg has mentioned, we don't know, we cannot make these choices in a vacuum without truly creating communication. And that is our role. Our role is not to create educational policy. It is to create communication. And that is the most important thing. And the teachers need us too. Our teachers are doing the best job they can, and our district is changing dramatically. We have how many languages? 123 languages spoken. We are the most international district of any in our state. And so we need to take that into account. We need to take into account the fact that there are people who have a lot in this district, who are blessed with financial and other benefits. And we also need to face the truth that our district also has incredible racial and economic discrepancy. And we need to address that openly and communicate that effectively to start the communication so that the teachers and the staff can actually take action and empower them to take meaningful action.
Thank you. Thank you, Leo. All right, next up is Caroline.
Yeah, and something Greg said kind of resounded with me. It's a bottom-up approach. It's the teachers and the staff that are seeing this, that are seeing the barriers and seeing the growth. So I think as a board members, that's who we need to talk to. That's who we need to listen to as well on the inside of it. Of course, we need to talk to the parents and talk to the students as well, but we really need to be there for the teachers and staff members and empower them to be able to report to us and have a trust in us that what we want to do is to get these kids educated. We want to give them a path for thrival and have them also live up to their greatest potential, whether it means education, whether it means, helping with homelessness, reaching out to community support. We have a fabulous community in Bellevue that we can, lean on and help with these kids and these parents, maybe take down some of these barriers so that the kids can get the education that by law is our job to provide for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Joyce.
So in the area of growth, this is where I agree with many of my fellow candidates that the metrics are really important. Increasing academic achievement, which includes AP. I came from a school district that didn't even have AP, and then I went to Harvard, where every one of my classmates, it seemed, did many AP classes. And so I understand that having access to those AP classes is something that is measurable and something that we can, is an area of growth to continue to excel in that area. retention of people in our school district, because we have the excellence, is also an area that we can have strong metrics and we can evaluate, and graduation rates, as I think Greg said earlier. Let's get it from 94% to 100%. Let's also work on the CTE programs even more. We've got a very strong CTE curriculum, and we should continue to enhance that and allow for our children and students to have many different areas of success and fulfillment. On the note of what the barriers are, I would put barriers under the rubric of it as invisibility, because I think that invisibility covers a lot of things. That means that students who start to lose interest or the belief that their voice matters and they become invisible, and we need to really work against that. That's our biggest barrier, because if we don't hear them and see them, then we can't make sure that they are also successful. Yeah, we need to combat invisibility is what I would say is the biggest thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next up is Valerie.
Yeah, I mean, the data is very evident on where we are lacking. And so I think there's an opportunity to couple, continuing to promote and inspire kids at high academic standards based on a strength-based approach, plus strong social emotional support. So, for example, in 2018, there was a pilot where they taught to the highest core standards, and it was a very intentional pilot, Ardmore's Title I. They measured the outcome both on social indicators like bullying, physical aggression, as well as academic indicators, and they both went up. Now, what did we truthfully look at that? Did we understand it? But I think when we couple this idea that our future leaders are going to lead with their hearts and their minds, we got to put these things together. And that's what I think is our next generation, our job here, right? We are going to cultivate our children to think with both equally. And that's what I think is going to be really important as we look at our children holistically. How are we cultivating that mind and heart? And how are we recognizing and changing that parent conversation? Leadership is laddership. You pull people to the top with you and you become a leader. You will be sometimes at the bottom, you'll sometimes be at the top. And especially with special ed, like, Elon Musk has Asperger's. I mean, our children are not deficit. They are not, so that's how we do it.
Time is up. Thank you. Next up is Jane.
Well, I think everyone's touched on some of the very fundamental things that we have to look at, which is the graduation and how do we measure our students' success. But more importantly, we have to go back to our mission vision statement and look at the, and refer to the fact that we need to address the whole child. And one of the things I know working in special ed is that students don't learn if they don't feel that they are trusted, they are socially, emotionally challenged, and as well as if they're not fed. So we have to make sure that those fundamentals are addressed. We have to make sure that, are they fed? Are they feeling secure and safe? Sorry, my video keeps on cutting off here. As well as we need to make sure that, whether it's in the classroom, in the hall, that they feel that there is a safe trust space with all the teachers and the staff that exists in the building. I think those are fundamentally the stuff that we need to make sure to address the whole child. We have some amazing partnerships that's going on in our school district. We have a wraparound service to support some of our students in these various different categories.
Okay, thank you. Time is up. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, next is Faye.
First of all, we need to set up all clear goals for each group. These 4 groups, they are very different. So for each group, we should set up a different goals. Also, we need to have a clear outcome. How are we going to measure our intervention? If it's successful or not successful, everybody mentioned the graduation rate, which is a good indicator. Also, for example, like for the English learner program, every school district showed that they all can catch with an equitable result. So we can learn from them what they did. When I was in Minnesota, like one student was from Africa country, and she could not speak English. And we have one special staff just to work with her to help her. So it's very important that we have adequate staff to help all the students. We need to outreach all those students that's in need, including the students with disabilities, English learners, especially homeless people, students. There's a very hard group that we can outreach, and also the minorities. And we need, as a community, we need to listen, always have parents' involvement. We listen to their need. We need special, we need adequate staff to help all of them and make this community, all the kids thrive in our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all. Oh, my hair's pretty special now. Sorry about that. We had more questions, but we have run out of time. So we're going to move to your closing statements now. And the order for that is going to be Leo, Caroline, Jane, Greg, Valerie, Faye, and Joyce. So again, we will be starting with Leo with your 1 minute closing statement. Timekeeper, yeah, timekeeper's adjusting.
Oh boy. Thank you. I really appreciated the discussion, the lively discussion, and getting to know what positions are of other candidates. I believe that we have an amazing opportunity to really grow and improve our district, and to change the leadership, to support, to choose a powerful superintendent who understands and cares about our community. And it is our responsibility to make sure that this district runs well and creates equity. I am also here to highlight the fact that at this time, in my opinion, the Bellevue Educational Association has overstepped its bounds and have alienated many parts of our community, including some of the best teachers in our community. I've heard from many of them, and the parents. And those people who stand with me on that need to push back on this kind of divisive and very terrible language. I hope that we can grow together and build a really strong partnership to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Caroline.
First and foremost, thank you everyone for spending your evening with us. I know that this a lot of times the 6 to 8 spots family time, and I appreciate the time that you're spending here and working with and listening to us to figure out where we stand for the district. And we need more parents like you and educators and whoever else is here to help us so that we can hear the feedback and so the district can hear the feedback. You know, again, my goal in serving on the board is to really engage students, family, educators, and the community, and really work on creating a equitable and inclusive environment where all students can thrive. You know, the board and everyone else needs to really make transparent decisions so that trust can be rebuilt within the community. As a community, we need to come together with clear goals and expectations to create a more supportive and learning environment for our district. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Jane.
I want to close on a personal note. I was heartbroken when my daughter told me about her friend who attempted suicide this past year, knowing beforehand about the rise in depression among our students. As a parent and educator, I feel personally responsible for the well-being of our children. It's important to understand that this mental health crisis began before the pandemic. We live in a district with high performance expectations in academics and activities, and the pandemic made the situation worse. We can only solve our problems if we truly understand the problem we aim to solve. We then need to expand our concepts of what it is necessary to heal our community. We need to engage with everyone in our community, everyone, to gather perspectives and experiences and use them to return to return to focusing on the needs of our students as part of our future policy decisions. I am the leader we need now to ensure our students are capable, supported, and safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Greg.
So I think job number one is to put the kids first. Some of us have mentioned that. That would be my absolute number one goal, is to put the kids first. And I think if you talk to any parent that knows me from the school, from Jingmei, and I know most of them, and I know all the kids because I'm so involved, they would tell you that I'm all about the kids and every one of the kids. I started to talk a little bit about this recess program that I put into place. I worked with the YMCA. I noticed kids walking around. Some of them had no friends. They were lonely. You could tell they were disconnected. And so I talked to the YMCA, and they brought in a program called Play Every Day. And on Thursday and Fridays, they came in and they did an outreach program where they grabbed these kids and pulled them in to participate in dodgeball, capture the flag. On Fridays, we did a dance party. So my big question is, after the teachers were fully vaccinated, why is it that the union didn't want them to come back? It's a big question. I think still needs to be answered.
Thank you. All right, next is Valerie.
Yes, so as a, future potential board member, I'm here to represent you. So, again, thank you for your time. I mean, in some ways, this board is just a mouthpiece of all of you and the 20,000 children. And how do we do that? And I believe that you all have to ask the board, are we successful? Is our board successful? And that needs to be measured. And we need to be accountable for that. And so that's what I think, we need to model what we expect from our leadership in the district, from our teachers, and from our kids. And so that's sort of how I look at this. We talked a lot about board selection, but this is not our selection. This is our selection, and we need to really take that to heart. So, that's how I see this. I really want to be this voice piece of our community, and I'm still in this process of learning. I've taken a lot of efforts to learn from our data thus far, but I'm still looking for more.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. Time is up. All right, next is Faye.
We will return all the students back in-person learning in the fall, full-time. We will gain the trust back we'll gain the parents' trust, bring most of the students who have left the school district back to Bellevue School District. We will recover the students academically and emotionally. We will work together as a community, unite together, and we will revitalize our school, Bellevue School District, and make it a top choice for Bellevue School residents again. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with me, everyone.
Thank you. And next will be Joyce. Timekeeper, we need to reset. There you go.
Thanks. We're all here because we love the students, the educators, the families, the moms and dads. We all love the students, and we all know that that is at the core of what we are here for. That said, it is an ecosystem of everybody in the community, and my thought is that we need to heal, and that we need to not prioritize one over the other, but see they're all part. Because if we've got people who are fearful or feeling invisible, whether they're parents or teachers or students, then we suffer as a community. I'm proud that my children are in the Bellevue School District. It's a world-class, truly a world-class school district. And we have the opportunity to turn the page on this difficult year and continue to grow together, united, and positively with joy and empathy in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all candidates for showing up here tonight, for sharing with us, for answering these questions. Like I said, we have more. And so we are looking forward to another candidate forum in the fall after the primary has been held. But I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Smitty now.
Oh, I definitely want to echo what Melissa was saying. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. While we were unable to get to all the questions we received, we hope that it's provided each of you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about each of our school board candidates. We want to thank you, the audience, for being engaged voters. I also really want to thank our moderator, Melissa Saunders, as well as the rest of the Bellevue PTSA Council and question submitters for working tirelessly to pull this forum together in our virtual world. We also want to thank all the candidates for their willingness to participate in this voter education night and hope they'll join us again for future events, even though we're a little bit over time. We will work on posting the video from tonight in the coming days, and please feel free to send an email to advocacy@bellevueptsacouncil.com if you have any questions at all. Thank you for an informative and lively evening.